Yes, Taylor Swift is a political threat, but for reasons much different than you may suspect. Hello, good people. It is Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, getter of the buckets, and we have to talk about Taylor Swift. Apparently, there is some supposed conspiracy theory about the Super Bowl being rigged, and it's about setting up Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce to make some. I don't know. I don't really understand the conspiracy theory thing, and I can't confirm or deny whether or not that's a real thing circulating. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think it's kind of dumb with respect to whether or not the Super Bowl is rigged, because you cannot rig greatness. Sorry, but Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT, or soon to be the GOAT, if he wins this Super Bowl. But that's neither here nor there, because this is about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is a political threat to the right. And there's a specific reason for that. And that's mostly because the single white female is actually the most robust, basically, opponent to the conservative movement in the United States at the time. I don't think we realize that. I don't think we understand how big of an obstacle the single white female population is to conservatism. And it's not a racial thing. It has nothing to do with inherently, with whiteness or whatever that is. I don't play those games. I'm not into the racial games. But this is a majority white company. This is a majority white country. And because white people are the biggest demographic group, you take any group of single women, and it's going to be single white women who are the biggest group among them. So, single white women. Well, why is this a thing? And I'll tie it back to Taylor Swift in a moment here. But I want to draw your attention to an article that I remember reading some years ago, and it was one that was circulating in different news cycles about the growing divide between young women and young men. And it says young women are much more liberal than young men. And they kind of just, it's an article. You can read it here. This is Survey Center on American Life is where I'm reading this. But there's several different places that kind of acknowledge this kind of difference. And this focuses on young women 18 to 29, but it's also true for young women and young men of high school age, so boys and girls. And the question is, well, why is that? That's what I want to deal with. They talk about the fact that they are more liberal, women, that is. Young women are much more liberal than young men, but I want to talk about why, okay? And the reason why is the unique design of women. And no matter where you stand on the so-called gender, whether gender is a social construct, I know that's a narrative that the left is forwarding, but every time they try to do that, the reality of biology comes punching them in the face, and there is no escaping it. Now, this is why Taylor Swift is a big deal, because Taylor Swift is essentially the embodiment of the single white female. She's like the avatar, right? She's like the zeitgeist of single white women. Like, she's like, it's like, remember that song by Shaka Khan, I'm every woman. Like, literally, Taylor Swift could remix that song and be like, I'm every single white woman, it's all in me. Like, literally, she's in control of like a solid probably 60% of the opinions of single white women. And because single white women are very liberal, this could be a problem. This is not a vacuous thing. Now, the whole thing about Taylor Swift, I think something to the effect of Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, had said something about this. Here's an article in Newsweek. And this was a tweet by Vivek Ramaswamy. He says, I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl next month. And I wonder if there's a major presidential endorsement coming from an artificially, culturally propped up couple this fall. Just some mild speculation over here. Let's see how it ages over the next 8 months. Now, this is Vivek, just surmising that, maybe this could be a thing, and that, he's just putting his opinion out there. Now, the left, of course, doing what they do. They're they're acting like this is some weird conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's called conjecture. It's called prognosticating. And the left's got no room to be criticizing about supposed conspiracy theories, because every so-called conspiracy theory in the last like 2 years have come absolutely true and has been correct. So they should really shut up about that. It's incredible that they still try to play that card. But in any case, I think it's important that we just understand that if something like that happens and we get this big endorsement from Taylor Swift, from basically being the avatar for the single white female, this could really be a problem. So let's explain why that is. I'm going to go the biology route, because I was thinking about this about probably maybe a little less than a year ago, and it suddenly dawned on me that what the left has done has weaponized feminine nurturing and feminine energy against us, against our society. Let's just think about the single white female and what is probably most important to them given the spirit of the age. They basically worship at the altars of abortion, right? These women think it is their birthright to kill their children for any reason on demand. These women are being discouraged from marriage, or at least delaying marriage and childbearing, which, as a side note, would make them much happier. Just saying, just putting that out there. They want to pursue careers. They're becoming more and more independent from men, and this is what's being encouraged. And while they're also being told that abortion is their birthright, they're also basically being developed as 304s, as the OnlyFans culture and pornography runs rampant. The women are legitimately thinking that being basically sexualizing themselves is a solid career move. And there are a lot of women who have very lax standards for sexuality. They're sleeping around, and then they think, hey, well, if I get pregnant, I can just kill my child. This is all bad. This is all bad. And Taylor Swift is basically on record saying, there's no such thing as a slut. There's no such thing as a bee. There's no, I'm sorry, Taylor. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. But let's take a step back to understand female psychology, female biology, and their ability to nurture. Let's just think about this. Women are nurturers by nature, right? The thing that embodies this, or the thing that demonstrates this the most, is when a woman has a child, right? A woman's response to the crying of her child is a physiological, and it's a deeply psychological thing that men do not experience. I know this because my wife has explained it. Many women can tell you about it. If a woman hearing her child cry, it literally produces a physiological change in their body. Many women, just the sound of their child crying causes their milk to come in, and their breasts to fill with milk. Just the sound of their child crying. That sort of psychological connection to the cry of a child is something that's very interesting. But in order for women to be highly attuned to their children, women have to be highly attuned and empathetic to the pain of others, to the suffering of others, much more than men are. We tend not to be as in tune with the cries and the suffering of other people, right? And obviously the purest form of that difference between men and women is dealing with children. Well, it's interesting because the left has exploited that. They've exploited this natural phenomenon and this natural tendency of women, because what is the left's mantra, right? The left's mantra is supposedly compassion for the oppressed and the downtrodden, right? There's the cries for justice. We use that term, kind of metaphorically, with the cries for justice. But, cries are cries, right? There's the cry of a child. There's the cry for justice in a metaphorical sense, in a sense of society and understanding the weak and the strong and all of that stuff. And that sort of narrative, even if this is the key that I want to underscore, even if it isn't necessarily true, women are much more likely to respond to that. Women are much more likely to default to taking the side of the person who they perceive to be in pain, who they perceive to be suffering. Why? Because that's what a woman is supposed to do. Now, this is not a criticism of women. This is not saying, oh, women are gullible. You don't understand. This is the way when we talk about stuff like this, immediately someone comes and weaponizes this observation to try to say, well, what are you saying? Are you saying women aren't capable of thinking? And you're saying women aren't, they're gullible, they can be emotionally manipulated? I am saying that women are much more susceptible to emotional manipulation, but what I'm not saying is that that's a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing because within a certain context, it's necessary. Within the family context, and this is really why men and women exist in the first place. This is why our divine design is complementary, because in the context of a family, you need one of those parents, at least, to be attuned to the cries and the suffering of their child acutely. And if you think about, the old adage, a mother's never seen an ugly child. Like basically, no child is ugly to their mother, right? Right. But more specifically, even when a child has done the wrong thing, and even when they don't actually deserve grace, and when they don't deserve mercy, and when they don't deserve to be treated in a way that when they've behaved badly, a mother is still going to protect her child because she's not thinking about what needs to happen from a justice standpoint. She's thinking about what needs to happen from a nurturing standpoint, from a covering standpoint. And every child needs that because every person is going to make a lot of mistakes during their upbringing, during their maturation process. They need that. If it's up to dads, we'd be sitting there wanting to wring the child's neck. And you can't be all justice, no mercy, no nurturing, no soft touch. This is what a woman does, and it's so important to the development of our society. It's the moms. It's the moms standing in the gap for their children, right or wrong. And when I say right or wrong, whether their children have done right or done wrong. And so in that context, it's a superpower. But because, and this is why the concept of the single white female is so important, because these women haven't lost their desire to nurture. They haven't lost that impulse. It's not gone. But because these women tend to age and they tend to delay childbearing and they don't have their own children to direct that nurturing towards. As a matter of fact, psychologically, our culture has caused women to think of their children as some sort of parasites or some sort of obstacle to their personal success or affirmation. And so they redirect that instinct to nurture towards people groups and societal issues of injustice. And this is why women are much more likely to adopt the left's narrative. We see this happening on macro levels in many different areas. And it's, for example, the reason why we see a lot more engagement in political activism when people become less religious. Well, when you take away something as important and as natural and as because we were designed to worship, when you take away religious devotion, people don't lose that impulse to participate in concepts that are metaphysical and larger than them in principle. They just redirected. They just end up being redirected in their kind of worship, so to speak, in their adoration of certain causes. It becomes literally they become like religious, just in a political sense. I like the way Vivek Ramaswamy puts it. He talks about COVIDism, racism, all the isms, environmentalism. People they don't get rid of their religious impulses. They just adopt new ones that tend to take on a religious posture. So Taylor Swift, yes, Taylor Swift is a problem for the conservative movement. And I think what we have to do in order to combat this is we have to get women reoriented back towards the family. Get that nurturing impulse, that desire to respond to the cries of people, to those cries to be their actual children and not some fake narrative drummed up by the left about how, black people can't walk out in the street without being killed by the police for no reason, which is a complete garbage lie, right? But one that women are much more likely to lend themselves to if, in fact, it is presented to them. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Single white females, how do we solve this problem? We got to get back to the trad wife. We got to get back to the families. But that's my opinion. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I'd like to see you on the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, friends, God bless you.